Who is ready to nerd out about some books? I sure am. Friends! Hello! Welcome back to Amethyst Craftworks. I'm Samantha. How are you today? I hope you were doing good today. I myself am doing pretty darn good here. Things are going well. Fingers crossed, touch wood, etc., etc. Things are going well for me. I hope they are for you as well. I hope you've had a lovely March so far. We are now, as of recording this, and obviously as you were seeing this, we are officially in the springtime season. I don't know about y'all, but the seasonal sads that come along with winter and the snow and the dark and the cold are starting to lift. My feelings are starting to kind of come back to me. You don't really notice how much that sort of thing affects you until it starts to sort of lessen and go away. The first time it was sort of bright and sunny after the time change, so after daylight savings, and we have an hour more of daylight in the evenings. The first time those sorts of things started to lessen the load, shall we say, I was like, wow, I feel it. I feel like demonstrably better. Demonstrably, I feel a lot better. Okay, so I hope you are enjoying that as well. Springtime may not be my favorite time of year, but when it's coming out of the cold, bleak, dark winter, it's pretty good. But regardless of that, the weather and my seasonal depression, not what we are here to discuss. Instead, I've got some books to nerd out about with you, including some crochet thingies and such, We've got to tie it back to the fiber arts, of course. Of course. And so, before I even get into anything here, I will draw your attention up there to the 2025 goals video that I made closer to the beginning of the year, but not quite at the beginning of 2025. You know how it goes. Where I talked about this project. It has sort of evolved over the first 3 months of the year so far into what is essentially going to be like a memory blanket. I think it's pretty much a pretty good way to sort of describe what it is that I'm doing. Because at first I was just making granny squares to commemorate the books that I was listening to, pulling colors out of the book covers of the books that I'm listening to, because this year one of my big goals was to consume more books, specifically audiobooks. They are my preferred way to consume book media at the moment, mostly because I can also crochet and, knit and other things while I'm listening. But that was a big, big goal of mine, to consume more books, because last year I listened to zero, I read zero, I looked at zero books. So this year we're making concerted effort to change that. And you'll see, I've been doing pretty good with it. So it started with that, doing granny squares for book covers, and then I was like, well, I'm also working on the movie marquee, which is also a year-long project for me too. Why not make squares for the movie marquee movies every month? And then, I'm also working on Duolingo. I'm learning Japanese slowly. It is very slow. I'm currently kind of not stuck. I'm just sort of in the midst of learning kanji and hiragana and the characters, and it's not quite clicking in my brain meats totally. I think I need to do maybe some outside of Duolingo work on the Japanese characters, because it's not completely light bulb moment in my brain, if that makes sense. Not to say the like speaking or reading the language is also like I'm like a savant. No, not at all. But the characters are definitely more challenging for me than reading and, you know, all that stuff. So anyway, with all that to say, I'm also commemorating the sections I complete in Duolingo with these granny squares because each section has its own color, right? And these are what we are discussing. Let me pull one up here. Here's just a random one. This is a Duolingo one. Shades of Teal. The section was this sort of like green teal color, so I used that as my inspiration. So I've caught up completely on Duolingo sections that I had previously completed that I then decided I was going to go back and make squares for. So I've completed all the Duolingo ones. Let me make sure I'm holding this right way up. These are all the sections that I've completed, and this is also the granny square pattern that I'm doing. It is the Blessed Bee Granny by Woman Walking on a Wire. I will link you to it down below. It is the heartogram. That one you can't really see all that well, although maybe I can show you. It's sparkly. That like middle green is sparkly. Maybe you can see it. You can kind of see the shape of the square better in this one. This is the heartogram variant, so instead of a 5-pointed star inside the circle, it is a heart with the 5 points, right? You get it? So these are the squares that I am making for this project, and these are all these sections. Boy, you can really tell that outside purple is sparkly there. That one shows up very nicely. So I've said this sentence like I feel like 6 times already, but these are the sections for Duolingo. Make sure I've got them all right way up. Each section has its own color scheme. The pink, of course, this one also is sparkly. Gotta cover my face with it, I think. There, you can see that outside pink. It's sparkly. They all have a color, and then I don't know if it's like the actual way the app looks or if it's just the fact that my phone obviously is in dark mode, that the background is black, but a lot of the backgrounds and stuff are black. So I've got all of the sections. Ooh, that one is so bright you cannot even see the heart in the middle. Can you even see it? There you go. There you go. Like the most awkward way possible. But there's 2 different very neon shades of orange there. So these are what we're talking about today. I've got quite a nice little stack here of granny squares all completed. I don't have a set goal number of squares that I want to complete. I'm just sort of making them as I go. And, you know, at the very end of the year, if I don't have a number of squares that kind of works out well for a blanket, I will add squares to it or subtract squares from it and use these squares for something else, you know, to make, like, I would say at least a rectangle size blanket. But size and like number, I'm not even like worrying about it yet because we're only in March, and that's a future Samantha problem. That is a December 2025 Samantha problem. We're only in March 2025 Samantha. So anyway, we've got those done. But then I want to talk about the books that I have been reading, listening to, the books that I have been consuming. Okay, so I have this reading journal, and I tell you what, this is like the best investment I have made in a very long time when it comes to like goal setting and like keeping things organized in both here and then in a physical place where I can reference it, because I date when I start and then date when I finish the books. I immediately write a review on it. I don't know if you can even read it, but like I review it, I leave it a grade out of 5, like a score out of 5. The words that I liked in the book, the story, how I felt about it, the best parts, the worst parts, so on and so forth. So this has been fabulous to kind of keep track of where I'm at in these books and when I finish them and yada yada, just in case, I forget, like I'm prone to do, because I have read, I mean, like this many books, like this many pages of books that I'm going to be talking about here today, and keeping them all in line and track in my mind, keeping them all separate, knowing the authors and the titles of the books and so on and so forth. Like, it can get kind of a jumble. And so that's what we're going to talk about next, is my reading journal and my book journey. And yeah, we're just going to nerd out about some books. All right, so before we get into the actual books, I just want to say really fast, this is a spoiler-free zone, okay? Unless the story is so well known that, like, spoilers don't matter, I'm not going to give you spoilers for these books, okay? So if any of them tickle your fancy, if some of them are on your to-read list, if you're interested in them at all, I'm not going to spoil the story or anything for you. I promise. I'm going to give you a synopsis, maybe, in my opinion on them, and, we'll go from there, right? But I'm not going to spoil books for you. Just putting that out there in case you were ever worried. I hate when that happens to me, when someone spoils something that I'm reading, watching, listening to, etc. So I'm not going to do it to you. Cross my heart. Promise, okay? Pinky, pinky swear. So, the last book that I showed in that 2025 goals video was the third book to a series by Darcy Coates. The book itself was called Whispers in the Mist. That is where we left off last time. That was book 3 of 4 in a series called Black Winter. I have since finished it. I've got the square to commemorate it. This is the square that I had made, and then this is the cover of the book that I'm going off of. This series, you can set that right there. This series by Darcy Coates, let's see, they were Voices in the Snow, Secrets in the Dark, Whispers in the Mist, and then this book is Silence in the Shadows. These 4 books, I think, are even to date, because I finished Silence in the Shadows on the 12th of February. So even with more than a month between when I finished that book and currently, I think still it is my favorite series of books that I have read thus far this year. I really connected with it. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. It's a post-apocalyptic kind of horror, action, thriller type series where the main characters, there's 2 main characters. The female main character, her name is Claire. And then the male main character, his name is Doran. They are precious and adorable and sweet and lovely, and I adore both of them to the moon and back. I really liked this series. I liked this, cemented the fact that I really like Darcy Coates. I like her creativity. I like the way she writes. I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. I very much had the end of book sadness that you get when you finish a really good story or a really good series, where you're just kind of lost and like, what do I do now with myself, right? Like, you don't even know. It's so good. It ended in a way that was completely satisfying. It was fabulous. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. Highly, highly recommend those 4 books. And, the Granny Square turned out pretty fabulous. And then I've got all my squares sitting over here in a stack. Let me find the next one. I do believe is this one. Now, this one I started on the 13th of February. So the book and the theme were all sort of Valentine's Day-esque. The book itself was called You Will Be Mine, and the author was Natasha Preston. I'll put the cover up over there. Is this the right way up? This is the right way up. This is the square that I made for it to match. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I know not every book is going to be a winner. Right off the bat, I am fully aware of this. This book, and even the square itself, is also just sort of medium, right? I even put in the book, in my book for the reading journal, I put Valentine's Murder Mystery was exactly that, very medium. And it was. It was a Valentine's Day themed horror thriller murder mystery book. Not even a horror, just like a straight up thriller slasher type book for Valentine's Day. Since I started on the 13th, I figured, what the hey, right? It's in theme with Valentine's Day. It was fine. I didn't hate it, and it was very much themed for Valentine's Day, mid-February. And I will also say it was written with characters that live in the UK. And the narrator, the audiobook reader, she had a great accent, and she did other like UK accents very well. So it was enjoyable to listen to. It just, it was fine. It was okay. Medium. It was very medium. So then, on the 17th of April, fast forwarding time, no, February 17th, the 17th of February, I started and also finished Monster Blood, which was the next Goosebumps book that I had to listen to. Now, this one, again, I'm basing all the squares that I'm making for Goosebumps books on the original covers, which is up there now, and not the cover as appears in my audiobook apps, which we'll get into. We'll talk about the apps in a sec here as well. But this one was for Monster Blood. I think this one turned out pretty fabulous. It's a fun color combination. It very much reads 90s kid book, right? I like that one a lot. And the book itself, now, let me preface this by saying, for example, You Will Be Mine, the last book, right? That was what it was called. Where are we here? You Will Be Mine. Okay. That one was written for adults, or at least young adults. It wasn't a child's book. I realize Goosebumps are children's horror books. I'm not, grading them on the same sort of criteria. But I enjoyed Goosebumps far more than You Will Be Mine. Just on, a cursory standpoint. It was about a young kid, a young boy, who gets kind of shipped off to his great aunt's house while his parents are looking for a house or apartment to live in a new city. The aunt is kind of witchy. She's kind of weird. She's kind of eccentric. She's got this big, big house, and it's just her and her cat that live there. She's got a pendant on her necklace that's sort of suspicious, and she's deaf. So she, can't hear what you're saying to her, and she talks kind of oddly, and so on and so forth. And the young boy, I believe his name was Ethan. Did I write his name in here? No, I don't think so. I didn't. Okay. I think his name was Ethan, though. Regardless, his name is Ethan now. So he meets a young girl who lives in the neighborhood. They become friends. Her name, I remember, is Andy. They go shopping at a toy store in this little town where they live, and they buy a tin that is an old toy, from the 1950s type of toy called Monster Blood. As you can probably tell from the book screen, book title, book cover, there we go. It's a slime-like substance, and then, you know, Goosebumps type shenanigans follow suit. It was a lot of fun. It had some good moments. I really enjoyed it, and those are such quick, easy listens. They're like 3 hours or less, so like in an afternoon, I can listen to one of those books. Really enjoyed it. And then we've got a switch in book apps. So I use almost exclusively Hoopla, Hoopla. I will sing Hoopla's praises to whoever wants to listen to audiobooks or even read ebooks. You know, if you've got a Kindle and you want to read like a physical book instead of like listen to one if you want to read it on your Kindle, so on and so forth. Hoopla is A+, A++++++, okay? All you need is a library card. If you don't have a physical library card, you can get a digital library card. It is very easy. I did it all online and all in like about 15 minutes to sign up for these apps and then a library card, and it was done. You get five excuse me, free borrows from Hoopla every month. And Hoopla has no, how to word this? So Hoopla doesn't have any limitations on what you can or cannot borrow. So even if every other person in the country has borrowed Monster Blood from Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, even if 18 million people have borrowed this book, you can also borrow this book if you want to read it and listen to it and so on, right? The other app that I have that is very similar to Hoopla is called Libby. That one is Libby. It is not my favorite, specifically because the book borrows are limited. So even if it's a digital book, there's no physical copy. It's an audio book. If there's only 5 copies of Monster Blood and 5 people have pulled that out as, you know, a borrow and they're currently listening to it, you have to wait until one of those copies comes back to the library when they're finished to then be able to borrow it, right? So if you're in the mood for something specific and it has a low number of copies available and every single copy is currently like borrowed, there's a time, like a queue that you can go into and wait for one to come up. And if it's a popular book, it could be a couple of weeks, a month waiting for a book. And so that's why Libby is not my favorite. However, Libby has more borrows. I think you get 10 borrows a month instead of 5. And they also have a section of books that are just available right now. So anything that you can just borrow right now, no waiting. There's a copy available right at that very moment for you to listen to. There's a list of books. So I finished all 5 of my Hoopla borrows, and then we moved on to Libby. One of the first books that I picked up from Libby that was available at that moment was The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This is the square that I made. I love the square. I love the cover, the book cover. The book itself, though, it again was fine. And I will say, none of the books that I have borrowed or listened to thus far this year, I have not disliked any of them. But this one also wasn't, I would say it wasn't my favorite. It's not that I didn't care for it, I didn't like it. I liked it. It kind of wasn't what I was expecting, I guess. I was sort of expecting a haunted house kind of story, and it ended up more like a suspenseful thriller with sort of ghostly elements in it. And it's about a young lady who is an author. She gets invited to her favorite author's kind of writing retreat, as the name implies, that's held at her home. It's like a big mansion in like the middle of nowhere in upstate New York or something like that. The premise was screaming haunted house, and it just wasn't haunted house. And that's kind of what I was wanting, was haunted house. However, I did enjoy it. I did like it. I would recommend it. I thought it was a good book. It was entertaining. We'll say that. But then the next one, which is this square here. The next one that I borrowed from Libby was called The September House. Here is the square that I made for the September House. Now, this also was a book that sort of threw me for a loop a couple of times even. I wanted a haunted house story. I figured a book called The September House with a spooky house on the cover had to be about a haunted house. And it is about a haunted house, but not in the way that I was expecting. And then once my expectations were kind of turned upside down and, I was like, well, I'm too far in now, let's just keep going. It sort of threw me for another loop, right? So the September House had a very, very likable main character whose name was Margaret, an older lady, a painter. She lives in a beautiful sort of Victorian dream house, and then shenanigans ensue, right? She was very likable, and it was kind of like a murder mystery, ghostly mystery sort of story. It was very enjoyable. The narrator, the person who read the book aloud on the audiobook was A+. Margaret herself was a really fun character. You were rooting for her the whole time, or at least I was. I enjoyed it. It just, again, it wasn't what I was, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I thought it was going to be just a straight up regular old haunted house story, and it very much was not that. I would recommend it though. I genuinely would. It was very entertaining. I liked it a lot. Now, the next book has two squares that I have made. Let me move my bookmarker here. So I made two squares for this next one book. This is the next one. This is the next square. Pretty color combo, right? Pretty color combo. Blues and teal and green and white. Very pretty. I made this one because this matches the book. However, this probably doesn't ring any bells for you, right? Like, this color combo is pretty, but it's not like, maybe iconic in the way this color combo might be. Red, and then brown, and then orange, and then back to red. Does this color combo ring a bell for you? It might. They are both the same story, but one is a book, and then one is a movie. I'm being coy here, but the book was The Shining. You can now see where the color inspiration came for the square that I made for the book. But The Shining movie is such a good one. It's genuinely one of my favorites, so I had to immortalize the carpet in the Shining hotel, the Overlook Hotel, in the movie, in a square, because I couldn't decide on whether to do one based on the book or based on the movie, right? So we did both. Now, Stephen King. I have never read a Stephen King book. I know. Up until now, I had never read one. Don't judge me too harshly. I have a reason for that. So when I was growing up, Stephen King was probably my mom's favorite author. I think so. Pretty much for any holiday, birthday, Mother's Day, Christmas, etc. If I had no idea what to get my mom, there was usually a brand new Stephen King book floating around that I could grab for her. And like 99.9 times out of 100, it was a hit with her. It went over fabulously with her because she loved Stephen King. She also loved Dean Koontz, I guess, as a second favorite author, but Stephen King was definitely her favorite author. And just like with crochet, which I'm almost positive I have told this story before, but I started crocheting in 2021, but my mom crocheted her entire life, like pretty much. She did a lot of like DIY, hobby crafts her whole life. Crocheting, knitting, cross stitch, embroidery, latch hook, rugs. I can't even think of all the macrame. She did all the crafty things. And when I was growing up, I had absolutely zero interest in anything that my mom was interested in. I was too cool for that, right? Like, way too cool to like things that my mom likes. Come on, are you kidding? So, I didn't start crocheting until I was an adult, and my mom was unfortunately already gone for several years. And Stephen King also never interested me because, again, he was my mom's favorite author. Why would I like the things that my mom likes? And, you know, now that I'm a lady of a certain age and I'm cough cough 41, I'm like, well, wow, my mom didn't actually have that bad taste at all, right? So I never read a Stephen King book. I never really had any desire to read a Stephen King book. And then The Shining sort of appeared on the list of books that were available on Libby, and I was like, let's give it a whirl. Fantastic. I loved it. The book and the movie are very much two separate things. I would even say, if you've never read The Shining book, the movie is almost like a different story entirely, because the movie is definitely Jack. Jack Nicholson is the main character. Whereas I would say the book, Danny, the young boy, the young son, is the main character. Also, Mr. Halloran, who is the chef, the cook in the Overlook Hotel, has a much bigger part in the book than he does in the movie. There's also some iconic scenes in the movie that don't exist in the book at all. And there's some scenes in the book that I wish existed in the movie, but they definitely don't. The story kind of diverges at a certain point, and they don't really intersect completely. And do I like the book more than the movie? No, but yes. As a standalone book, I think I like it more, but I mean, come on, you cannot move past how iconic the Shining movie is. Even the carpet, that the square that I based this on, the carpet in the movie is markedly different than the carpet in the book, right? So they're kind of almost two separate entities, and I like them equally. And I really enjoyed listening to The Shining. I had a lot of fun with that one. The narrator, again, if you've got a good narrator, if you've got a good, like someone with a good speaking voice, or who does, like voice acting, like different voices and stuff for each of the characters, it is chef's kiss. It makes it even better. So I really enjoyed that one. The Shining opened my eyes to Stephen King, and so now I definitely want to move on to Dr. Sleep, I think is the name of the sequel. I think it was a movie as well. But yeah, I definitely want to move on to Dr. Sleep, and then maybe Pet Sematary. I did look at, I think it was The Stand. I think it was The Stand on audiobook, and it was like 45 hours long. Like, to give you an example, The Shining book was 16 hours long. The September House was like 15 hours. The, You Will Be Mine, I think, was 10 or 11 hours. And then The Stand is 45 hours long. I think it was even longer. I think it was 50, 51, 52 hours long. That is a commitment and a half. But I was perusing other titles that are you know, so well known, so iconic by Stephen King, and I'm into it. So we'll maybe move on to Doctor Sleep and then progress from there, right? So then, let me grab the next one. Now, I was into this book series. I even talked about this book series here on my channel way back when, because I first spotted it from Altknots. Altknots does a haunted book club, a haunted audio book club every month for books and things, or at least they did. I'm not certain if that's still a thing now, but I think it is. Regardless, it was at one point, and one of the books that kind of caught my eye back then was The Vampire Knitting Club. That was it. I'm trying to think of the name of the book. And so that actually was part of a larger series of books. Now, I'm sure you can figure out why I was drawn to vampire knitting. Hello. Like, two things that I love, spooky horror and then yarn. Come on. And they also were like a murder mystery type book. They almost remind me of like Murder, She Wrote, in that it's like a small town. There's like quirky characters that you get to know throughout the stories and throughout the books. It's like a whole series. And also kind of like Golden Girls in a way, because they're sort of like, there's a couple of like spunky older ladies that live in town. Oxford in England is where it's set. And it's very kind of witchy. It's sort of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with like vampires and witches, and it is demons. It is so good. This series is so good. And I read maybe 4 or 5 of them, or I listened to about 4 or 5 of them, and then just stopped. I don't know why. I don't know why I do half the things that I do, but I stopped. So we picked back up on the Vampire Knitting Club with, I think, was this, let's see, was that book number 6? Okay. So this is for book number 6 in the Vampire Knitting Club, which is Fair Isles and Fortunes. These are also very, very consumable books. They're like kind of one-shot stories. They're usually like 6 hours, 5 hours or so long in audiobook form. It's like a couple of days listening, you know. They're very simple, and it's like kind of almost, it's difficult to describe a murder mystery as a cozy story. But it definitely is. Like, the main character, her name is Lucy. She's very likable. She's got a cat and a knitting shop, a yarn shop. And she's got this, like, group of vampires and, like, the little old ladies that run the tea shop next to her. And, like, the bookstore across the road. And it's very cozy, very small town. She's, like, got family that's witchy. And it's so good. I love them so much. And so I, like, binged through several of these books. So we've got Fair Isles and Fortunes. And then we've got Lace and Lies. Lace and Lies, this one. Now, the cover for this one is no more, like, colorful than, you know, any of the other books in this series, really. But I was like itching to use a variegated yarn in one of these like granny squares. Hold on, let me pull my bookmark there. So like I was itching to use this variegated. This one is the one from Heather. I used this for Follow That Bird for the movie Marquee this year. It's the same one, same variegated. I was itching to use it, and I was like, oh, it's perfect. There's yarn and all different rainbow colors and stuff. So we used it here for Lace and Lies. Now, Fair Isles and Fortunes was about a fortune teller, like, stall, like a tarot card fortune teller stall in a little village summer festival. Lace and Lies was about a sort of famous, flamboyant knitting designer who came to Lucy's knitting shop to shoot a TV special show, is that one. And then I did finish, let's see, that was number 7. I finished number 8 as well, which was called Baubles and Broomsticks, and I'll put that up there as well. However, that is the last book that I finished, and I have yet to make the square. Forgive me, okay? So I've got that one left to do. That one was about a wedding that was for a couple of Lucy's friends, and then shenanigans ensue, right? Shenanigans ensue in all of the vampire knitting books, as well as most of the other books that I have been reading are mostly shenanigan driven, right? But I love those vampire mystery or vampire knitting club mystery books by Nancy Warren is the author's name. So good, really enjoyable, and they're like easy listening, like easy bite-sized sort of books that you can finish in a couple of days that just sort of like cleanse the palate. You know, between like serious stories or like big, involved, complicated series of books, you know, right? They're fun. I love them. So then the very last one that I have got is a blue square for you. There we go. Nice and blue. And this one was for a Darcy Coates book. Now, this one was called The Haunting of Lee Harker. It is up over there. And again, I will say, as much as I enjoy Darcy Coates, I've read now 6 Darcy Coates books. I've read 6 of them now. As much as I liked the Voices in the Snow Black Winter series, and then as much as I liked the other one, which was called Dead of Winter, I like that one a lot too. This one didn't tickle my pickle in the same way. And that's also, again, not to say that I didn't like it or that it wasn't a good book, because it was, and I know that it was. Like, I could tell that it was a good book. It was well written. It didn't spark inspiration and, like, joy in me the same way the other books did, if that makes any kind of sense. Like, I didn't hate it, and I didn't not enjoy listening to it. It wasn't totally my cup of tea, if that makes sense. It does have sort of a surprise twist a couple of times. The story itself is exciting, but I will say maybe the reason it didn't resonate so much with me is because it was sort of slow. It was kind of a slow burn, like a slow into the action. And then the action itself was also slow, so it was almost a little bit boring at times, even though lots of things were going on. Just the way it was written, I don't know. It didn't click with me. And again, I wanted a haunted house story, right? It's like, for several of these books, all I was wanting was a haunted house, kind of spooky house story. And that's what it was, but it's also not what it was, if that makes any sense. So I would say I liked it well enough. Would I recommend it? Yeah, if you're really itching for, a book and you have nothing else to read, maybe. But I would go with maybe, The September House, for example, more than the Haunting of Lee Harker. But that is where we are in my reading journey here. I've got a big old stack of squares. I still have the ones from January and the beginning of February as well. I think I have read, I want to say, maybe it's into the 20s now. Let's see. Where are we? So this section is 10. There's 10. So that's 10. Or is that 15? Maybe it's 15. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then I'm currently on. So the book that I am currently listening to is book 20. I think that's pretty good for going from 0 to 20 in, 3 months. The book that I'm currently listening to, I will say, is also not my favorite. Up to the point where this one is almost a struggle to get through. I've been kind of like struggling with listening to it for the last, I don't know, week or so. We'll talk about that maybe in the next update that I've got for you with this book project. But those are all the squares that I have completed, not including the movie marquee for March, which I will show you in a movie marquee specific update. But yeah, that was all the books that I have been listening to. All the Duolingo sections that I have completed. I am very proud of myself, and I really love this project. I love all these different colored squares. I think they are going to look so fun and funky together. This sort of fills the void that I was missing when it comes to the movie marquee, in that, the movie marquee for this year, I'm making things to give away. So this is a little part of that sort of type of project for myself instead. So it's all fun. And I really enjoyed, doing this little update here with you. I like talking books. If you have suggestions for books, if you have recommendations for books, let me know down in the comments. I would love some spooky haunted house books. So if you have a recommendation, please do let me know. While you're down there, leave me a like if you like these kind of videos, and subscribe as well if you haven't. I would genuinely appreciate having you here. And until I have another video, another something to show you, I will say goodbye now. Take care. Goodbye.